Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm a little late because I had to get my coffee this morning. This is actually my first cup of coffee, and then I rush to get set up. So, you know how it is when you take a week off and you try to get back on the right schedule? Well, I'm here and I hope you're here. Let's make sure I get this camera set. And this is our final week of Preptober. Yay! Oh, you know what? That just will not do. That will do. Anyway, I've been working on my character Bible, and that's a tedious job. So I decided to work on it as I go along. I got my main characters Bible set up, and I have a list of my supporting characters. So I guess today we'll focus on characters, 4 little tips that I've been reading off and on. I hope you had a great week. I hope you're ready for NaNoWrimo, which is next week. Can you believe it? Wow, time went by fast. So, one thing we're going to do different here today is I'm here for 5 a.m., but I will be coming back live this evening at 6 o'clock Central Time. So, if you just want to jump in and prepare yourself, get some tips, and do some writing sprints just for the practice and plus productivity for the week. Join me at that time. I will be here live. Um, this is an exciting week because it's preparing yourself mentally, number one. And writing takes a lot of attitude and the right mindset because it is a struggle. I'm not going to lie about that. It is extreme struggle, but sometimes it can be enjoyable, pleasurable. It's a learning process. And if you come in with a purpose, your purpose for writing this particular story or project that you're working on, you can push through the struggle, guarantee. So, yeah, you have to clear your mind, get all those negative thoughts. Oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. You can do anything you want to do. There's no such thing as can't. And that's what one of my uncles used to say, never use the word can't. Get that out of your vocabulary. You can substitute it with something else, but believe that you can. And with that, you can go a long way. So, coming into Nano, that first day, and you're looking at that blank screen, don't get discouraged. Believe that you can. That's just a canvas for you to mold that story that's already in your head. That's just a placeholder for that story to get it out of your head. So don't be intimidated by a blank screen or writer's block. That's just a mindset. So that's one of the tips I want to offer you this morning. We're gonna have a couple of writing sprints to do to get in practice writing for Nano. I think what I'm gonna work on is my scenes. I moved on to step 8 of the snowflake method, so I need to write a list of all my scenes, and that's gonna be difficult. Not that I can't do it, it's because I have always been a pantser. This time I'm a planster because I like to write by the seat of my pants. Now I know my story. This is my third draft that I'm going into for NaNoWrimo. So it should come much easier for me. But I still don't like writing out those little details, but yet that will help me navigate my story real swiftly. And if this is your first draft and you still want to be a pantster, you can't because you're not actually writing the story out. You're just listing your scene. It's like that roadmap from point A to point B to point C. So I will suggest for you to write a list out of your scenes of how you visualize it in your head. That way, when you go and sit down in front of the computer or just to hand write your story out on November the 1st, you won't have that roadblock because you already know that first stop. So, yeah, Do that. That is one of the biggest tips I suggest to you. And you can still hold on to your title as a pastor because you're just taking that scene, that one sentence scene, and you elaborating on it. You extending it and writing it out. So yeah, that's one of my tips. So anyway, I will bring some tips on, off and on, in between each of our time writing this morning. We're gonna do a 7-minute warm up. No, I'm sorry, that's a 10-minute warm up. We're gonna have a 20-minute writing sprint. We're going to have a 30-minute writing sprint, and then we're going to follow up with a 7-minute wrap up. So I have music playing. If you like the music, just lower it down on your end. If you don't like the music, just mute it out. The timer will be going. Once the timer stops, I will join you with more tips. So let's begin with a 10-minute writing warm up. Okay, that completes our 10-minute writing warm up. I get a little carried away. So, right now, I'm working on my website. And one little tip I want to offer you when you create your author's website, or if you have one, is to be sure that it is compatible with your mobile and tablet devices. Like if you're working from a desktop, you'll have one vision, there's a view of your website. But if you was to go and look on a mobile device, you realize, oh, I can't see this, or I'm missing that, or this is off angle, or some of your head is off from a picture, or some of the words doesn't go, or a link doesn't show. That's because it's not compatible, or you just need to go into your settings and click on the mobile view, because a lot of the platforms will offer you a desktop view and a mobile view. So that's one tip to remember. I know there's a lot of new writers out there. Some is just now working on the author's platform. Just make sure that when you do the desktop view, you click the little icon to see what it looked like on a mobile device. And then you can look at your mobile device and see what needs to be changed. So that's just a little tidbit. I have noticed some websites, including my own, that will have one view on the desktop and is so chaotic and horrible on the mobile view, because there's a lot of people who use their phones as though it was their computers. So when they want to check out your website, everything is either crowded up on top of each other or missing. So just make sure those two views are in sync with each other. So that's a tip. So, about your characters this week, too. What I was reading, you do not want boring characters. And I feel like Bay was a little dry, so I had to really dig deep. She got some issues. And you, as a writer, don't be afraid of displaying those issues, because then it makes that character more relatable. Sometimes we tend to want our protagonist or our main character to be something that we aren't, that ideal person. And there's no such thing as an ideal person. Initially, with my Aunt Ivy, which is Bay's auntie in the story, I wanted her to be this auntie that I always longed for. Someone, and I think I had one, but she died when I was younger. But I wanted her to be this auntie that I can go to, and just this perfect auntie. She is far from perfect. When I went digging deep into her backstory, she have a lot of skeletons in her closet, and she has become the most interesting character in my story. So I was like, Aunt Ivy, you are not my main character. So I had to go back and look at my main character, my amateur sleuth, Bay Vons, and start digging deep into her, because sometimes if we look at ourselves, we don't want other people to see our faults and our flaws. But that is what makes us so real and authentic when we come over onto people, is they can see us for who we are, not for who we want them to see. And that's how you want to write your characters. You want to dig deep into them and bring out those flaws so your readers can see them and relate to them. And even if they're a type of character that don't want the world to see, that's good too, because in reality, we don't want people to see all that, but we struggle. And she struggled internally by being this facade of someone who has it all together in strength. But there's one person she opens up to and let those strengths just fade away, and she become weak. And this friend of hers, Rhonda, in the story is like, oh my God, Bay is real. She empathized with Bay so much because this person that she's been looking up to for years displays such strength, and now she see, okay, she's a real person. She's more relatable, and Rhonda can empathize with her, and she reaches out to her with this caring and compassionate heart, and Bay just didn't want that kind of empathy from people, but yet she realized it's okay. So yeah, dig deep into your character's emotion. Find something in there relatable that you can bring out. Bring out those vulnerabilities of your characters and make them real. One suggestion was to think about what will make you cry. And whatever will make you cry, think about it as in your character's place. What will make them cry? So when you're writing, think about these things to bring out these emotions, these hidden feelings, these vulnerabilities, and display them in your story. So that's another tip. So let's get started with a 20-minute writing sprint. Okay, that completes our 20-minute writing session sprint. So we're going to move on into a 30-minute. As one thing I want to add about characters too. Names I mentioned before are so important to me. They mean a lot. So every time I name a character, there's a meaning behind the name. So when you're doing your research, be sure not to get such a boring name or a name that you hear all the time. I like unique, different names. And names also based on what genre, because I know if you're writing a fantasy, you really want to get those really creative, unique names. And since I'm writing a cozy mystery, and my characters, my main characters are African Americans, and they in the South, deep South of Texas. I need to go back into some of my family names, like my great aunts, like Lily Mae, Aunt Carrie, Martha Jean, Aunt Bobby Jean, stuff like that. So I want to stay true to my heritage. And with some of the names I'm using, like Ida Mae Brown. So Ida Mae Brown and Aunt Ivy James, you need to be careful with the same letter names. They need to be distinguishable if you're going to use them. Now, you're going to know Aunt Ivy James or Aunt Ivy. She's really easy to remember, and her personality is one of a kind. Whereas Ida Mae Brown, even though they both of their names starts with an I, you won't be confused because in our family, that middle name is usually added on to the first name when we call them by their name. So you'll know Ida Mae Brown, Ida Mae is different from Ivy James. But they call Ida Mae Brown by her whole name in my story. So that's different. Also, characters that just make a brief cameo appearance in your story. Like if you go to a prison and you engage with one of the prisoners, but that's the only time he's in that scene, you don't really have to worry about his name or create that memorable name. Maybe use an adjective to describe his mannerism, his demeanor. Uh, Instead of giving him a name, because it's the only time he's going to be in your story, and he will become more memorable if you describe something that stands out about this prisoner. So that's another suggestion. um Also, if you can't think of names, there are so many names generators out there that you can fill in the information. I like the one from UK. It's a name generator. You can Google that, but it's in the UK. And it will create names for almost any genre. It will create a surname. It will create a birthday for that person. It will give you a backstory that you can take some of the bits and pieces and add it to your own character profile. So you may want to do some research like that. In the old days, they said go open a telephone book. Well, I don't think we have those anymore. I hadn't seen one. But use name generators. And you can also base the names on where their parents from or their religion background, things like that. So remember, names need not be boring like Jane, Mary. I'm not saying James is boring. James are boring. But in your story, create these names that will match their personality. I read somewhere that it was like a fight that was going on in a scene, and one of the characters was named Book. I was like, wow. And when I thought about it, it was between Book and John, if I'm not mistaken. They was getting into a fight. Even though we know a book is a book that you read, when you think about it, maybe you can spell it different. Book walked down the hall all bold and burry and stuff like that. I thought that was kind of cool. I know one of the shows that I used to watch, one of the characters was named Novel. And I like that name too. But you still need to make sure the name fits the personality or the action of the story, which will stand out so much more to the readers. And don't give these long names. I remember my grandmother wanted my first daughter to be named after me and her daddy. I'm Tish and he's Tim. She's in with the ethnic background, Timonisha. I was like, no. So you want to be, and it's okay if you're writing a book that would cater to a certain audience. Maybe Tim Monisha will fit. Everyone will understand that. I remember one time, me and my husband was at my mom's house, and she was telling us about how she would get to Galveston. She would go through this town called Les Marques. And with our culture, the way it's spelled, you will say, yeah, it is Le Marque. And we kept saying Le Marque. There's no place like we don't know no place like a name Le Marque to get to Galveston from Houston. And then it dawned on us, oh, she meant Lamarck. So you want to be careful with your names. Make sure that it's relatable with your target audience. It fit their personality and the character and the whole story tone. But we still laugh to this day. My mom she called it like she saw it, Les Marques, based on our culture and our environment. Les Marques, like Timonisha. So Courtney should be glad we didn't name her Timonisha. So anyway, yeah, Les Marques and Lamar. So think about your names. Be creative with them. Don't make them boring. Don't use the same letter in majority of your characters' names. And yeah, get something unique that stands out, that resonate with you and your character. And that way it will with your readers. So anyway, that's my tips on name. I love names. Anyway, let's move on to our 30-minute writing session.
Hello?
Okay, we're back. So that completes our 30-minute writing sprint. London asked a question that she's working on an outline. Any tips? Yes, I got plenty of tips. I've been working on those the past week. So, depending on what kind of writer you are, for Nano. My tips on that works for me. I follow the snowflake method, and I'm just gonna sum it up real easy steps for you to at least get started. We're not thinking about the high school kind of outline, just something just to keep you on a roadmap to take you from point A to point B until you finish your story. So first of all, I will say your premise. You always need the premises mean you know what you want to write about. And that's just a brief sentence. You always come up there. That's your first thing you want to include. Then I will say, think of the characters. Some characters going to come to you as you write. That's what happened to me. Keep a list of the characters, the primary characters in your story. So you're going to write those characters down, their roles, and you can get a brief backstory about your characters because the backstory will give you an idea as to how they act and way they think in your story as you move your plot forward. So knowing their backstory, they are their own heroes in their own backstory, but they're not the heroes in this current story. So write your backstory for your primary characters. I think I had 4 or 5 primary characters. One died, so they're not really a primary characters. So once you know your characters, you know your premise, you know your characters, you can write that down. Then you think about your plot, how one plot will move to the next plot to continue to write your story, to continue to move your story forward. So you need to think about your plots and your scenes. Each of my scenes, I broke them down into chapter. This worked for me. For some reason, it's a mental thing. I could not look at it as a chapter when I wrote it. But when I was writing my first draft, it was a scene. I wrote it as a scene. So you might want to say scene or chapter. In each chapter, you need to introduce your character, your main character. You also need to have a problem, and then a problem will lead to a solution, and then another problem. A problem, which can be a conflict, and then a solution or a problem that runs into another problem, etc. So those are my tips. Make sure each chapter has a conflict interchangeable with a problem. And then you have to come with I can't remember from the snowflake. It was a proactive scene and a reactive scene. And if I'm not mistaken, let me go through it right quick. I can't remember, but just be sure to look at the snowflake method that I have shared with you in the previous thing. But a proactive and a reactive scene, yeah. Now, each scene or each chapter, a proactive scene. So you can be writing this down. You're going to have a goal, the goal that your character needs in order to move your story on. Then there's a conflict. There's a conflict that's going to stop your character from achieving that goal. And then it's either going to be a setback that's going to stop them, and you got to include that maybe as an antagonist that stopped them from achieving that goal in that particular chapter or scene. And then the reactive scene, and these are the 2 most important things in each of your chapter, a proactive scene and a reactive scene. So you either going to have one or the other. So the reactive scene is that's going to be a reaction to something that happened with your main character or whatever character you're working on. Then there's a dilemma. They're going to have to figure out how they're going to deal with this particular issue. And then they're going to have to make a decision. Now, all these things is going to help move your story forward. And you need these two things, either or, in your chapter. So I would say, like, when you're writing your outline, you write your first chapter or your first scene, you can just write a brief sentence what it's about or how you think you want it to be. And if there's going to be a goal, a conflict, or and a setback? Or is it going to be a reactive scene where it's a reaction, a dilemma, and a decision? And that's in, I think that's in step 9 of my snowflake method. So just remember those things. Each scene is going to be a proactive or a reactive. And actually, that's basically it. If you're a pantser, you still can use this method. You can still write down how you want to navigate your story. Just be flexible when you write, actually going through the writing process, because it can totally go in a whole different direction. And that's the beauty of writing too, because you start to discover more things, especially when you start writing the second and third and the fourth draft. So yeah. Um, I probably do a blog post. I will do a blog post for you, and then I will share it under this here description, under this title of this video, or you can just check my website out later today because I'm updating it. And that is a good point, because not everybody uses an outline, and there are so many different outlines. And honestly, I swear by the snowflake method. I do. So I did the video series. Check it out. Honestly, it's really easy to do. You don't have to do all the steps. You can do just what is relevant for you, that will work for you in your story. And I'm going to do a real small, maybe 7 steps to creating your outline on a blog post for you today. Hi Karen, it's so good to see you. Wattpad and Inkit, did I say that right? Book Club Christmas party on December the 19th, 2020, 5 o'clock p.m. every Saturday. Well, thank you for sharing that, because if it's virtual, I'll be there. I like Christmas party, and I hope you continue to join us here and check out some of the videos and interact and write with us too. That would be really nice. Um, I have some friends that's on Wattpad. My friend was telling me her daughter loves Wattpad. I used to do Wattpad a while back when maybe 20 years ago. Wow, can you believe it's been that long? But yeah, also I want to tell you about I'm hosting a Halloween party. Um, on the 31st, it's a Halloween write-in. I would like to include some of my audience with me. I think I can include up to 4 people. If you want to live stream with me and want to wear a little costume, just remember we only see head up. Just send me an email or write it down here in the, well, no, send me an email. It will be better. Click on the link in the description that will take you to my website under contact. Fill out that little form, say Halloween party or live stream. I would like to include you in the live stream with me on Halloween, where we're going to kick off NaNo. So we're going to do that at 8 o'clock Central Time. So yeah, we're going to have the little decoration and all that good stuff, candy, eating, talking about our projects. It's just going to be just unscripted. So yeah, fill that out. So now we're going to wrap up with a 7-minute writing wrap up. And remember, I will be back at 6 o'clock Central Time. So join me then. Let's wrap this up. that completes our writing session for today. And London, don't forget, I am going to work on a 7-step quick outline blog post for you. And I'll share that with you. If I see you later on today, I'll share that link with you, or you can check out my website. Also, there's something new I added. I want you to become a Patreon. Yeah, at your leisure. I have a link down in my description because I started my Patreon page where I will be offering different things for everyone. Yeah, sharing in my journey of success with you so you can help move your journey on forward too. So, anyway, that completes our writing for this morning. I hope it was productive for you. It was for me. I will be back later on this evening, 6 o'clock Central Time. Until then, happy writing.